Hello, this is Julian with Coffee Reviews, and today we'll be reviewing the Pillcocaja, lot number 2, Golden Honey Processed Ecuador from Memli Coffee Lab. And there's the bag right there. And Memli, based out of Marcos, California, and they were a suggestion to us by Akavia8. So shout out to and thank you to Akavia8 for the suggestion. This coffee was also featured in our most recent blind taste test rankings video, where it finished 3rd place out of 6 coffees on that day. And just like with Red Rooster, this is another coffee roaster I had zero familiarity with going into that blind taste test video. However, I've had such a positive year with Ecuadorian coffees that this was one that caught my interest, especially as I was looking through Memli's coffees. So I'm looking forward to discussing this one, as this right here is day 26. And Memli does include these little cards with their coffees, and they do have a brew guide on them. So with this coffee, it was a 15.4 to 1 water to coffee ratio, brewed at 94 degrees Celsius, and I liked it best through the V60, which indicates a more medium fine grind. Roast profile for this, we'll definitely say light medium American. With all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and start discussing this coffee. Day 10, which was that blind taste test day, and I would say it was most distinctly quite dark, sugary, and slightly caramel in that first impression. There was a slight bit of fruit sweetness to the cup as well, but it was mostly dominated by this slightly darker finish. It left a pretty good first impression. It was one of the more sugary cups of coffee on that table, and that's what led me to believing it was one of those Ecuadorian coffees, given, I've had a lot of familiarity with these Ecuadorian coffees this year, and it was an interesting sweetness. So I liked it, thought it was positive from that first try. Day 11, a little bit more fruit sweetness in the cup, as it has quite a pronounced tropical fruit sweetness, reminiscent of a more sugary stone fruit. I completely forgot what the flavor notes they have listed on here are, but I assume that one of them would be mango. There's a fair bit of citric acidity in the cup as well, with a fair bit of the pronounced sugar that began dominating this cup yet again. I believe they had some sort of sweet spice listed on here, which probably indicates some sort of cinnamon, and I could see that. Definitely a fair bit of more kind of sugary sweet aspects in this coffee. Day 13, adjusted to their recipe, and this made it even more sugary stone fruit forward. It's tropical with plenty of this pineapple-like acidity. There was a slight bit of vegetal herbality in the cup on this day, and it was likely akin to that sweet spice that they had listed on there. So it was interesting on this day, but I still like this coffee for the most part, still having a pretty positive impression of it. Day 15, best day to the coffee, and the tropical fruit vibrancy at this point was at its highest, as there was so much of the sugary stone fruits with a sweeter citrus fruit aspect in this coffee. So a lot of the sweeter aspects, that was definitely highlighted on this day, and there wasn't too many adjustments. It just felt like time was doing this coffee pretty well. Day 17, cup continues skewing in the direction of this slight funkiness. So I haven't mentioned that before, but there was a slightly funky sort of stone fruit aspect to this coffee, especially in the earlier days, and it was present probably the most I noticed here on day 17. Sugary on those fruits, continuously sugary in general, citrus quite pronounced in the finish as well. So decent, not quite as good as the previous day, but we continue on through day 19 as it remains bright and vibrant, not necessarily the cleanest in terms of the fruits, as it continues to remain slightly funky. Lowered the temperatures in an attempt to tone them down, and the temperatures they use is even lower than my standard recipe. So 94 degrees Celsius worked well, as I didn't get as much as the funkiness with the lower temperatures. A lot of it continues to intensify in other directions, though most distinctly the sugar vibrancy. Day 21. Cup is improving steadily, especially in these later stages, as the sugar fruit vibrancy is complemented by an additional sugary aspect. So much sugar in this cup, so many of the sweeter sugary aspects in this cup. It remains high in that sense, and with plenty of wild tropical fruit vibrancy as well. Thinking again that mango pineapple aspect to it. Day 23, another day with steady improvement, as the cup remains on the sweeter side of the stone fruits. Sugary mango in abundance once again, complemented by an additional sugary sweetness. Here on this day, a lot less of the funkiness, a lot more of the sugariness. Just a really tropical, sugary cup of coffee in general. All right, let's go ahead and put up the tasting wheel so you can see what we're getting. And for level 4, so let's go through those real quick. The sweetness at a level 4. Yes, very sweet cup of coffee, even on the higher side of that level 4 sweetness. It's almost to the point where that's all you're really getting, is this really sugary sweetness in the cup. Acidity, it's got a fair bit of its acidity. I'm really curious as to what they put on their little chart here, because they have this as well. And the acidity they have pretty high. The fruit they have all the way to their highest mark. Sweetness they have pretty high, so actually I'm quite agreeing with the own tasting wheel that they came up with. I never actually looked at this until this moment right here. Citrus fruit, level 4, yeah, it's quite high. I think that's the biggest disagreement I have with them, is that they have the fruits at a level 5. I've just had fruitier cups of coffee, so I typically reserve those 5s for really abundantly fruity cups of coffee. But the citrus fruit, yeah, definitely on the higher side. Stone fruit on the higher side of the level 4, so I could see why they put it at the highest marks. I could see that as well. It's definitely on the higher side of the level 4 for the stone fruit. Let's take a look at what else we've got. The body, level 3. Yeah, about medium body, maybe on the slightly higher side of that, especially with the V60, but I agree with that. Cleanliness, level 3. Do they have the cleanliness on here? They do not. Okay, that's kind of interesting. So it's not necessarily the cleanest cup of coffee. I said there were times where it was a little funky, and that was kind of taking away from the overall enjoyment of this coffee, but lowering those temperatures definitely helped, as it wasn't quite as funky. Finish, level 3, I seem to agree with them on that, as they have it on the lower side of things, and this has a pretty even finish. For how sugary and sweet this coffee is, you would expect it to maybe last a little longer, but I'm fine with it being a little bit more even. Kind of an interesting thing I've learned from having a lot more of these coffees that finish in this kind of clean, even sense is that I actually prefer when the coffee doesn't have the most lasting finish. It's kind of nice, so I like that about this coffee. Caramel, level 3, a lot of sugary aspects. I like that there. Spice, level 3, yeah, mostly thinking cinnamon. There's a little bit of florality. I think that's high at that level 3 mark. I would tone that down a little bit. But for the most part, yeah, I think I like the way that this tasting wheel looks. I think it accurately represents what I'm experiencing, a really sweet, fruity cup of coffee in general. All right, my overall thoughts and impressions of this coffee. Of the two Memli coffees, I would say that they both came out quite nice. They both exceeded the expectations I had for them going into it, and then after that first blind taste test, this one improved a fair bit from the first time I tried it, and it got to a point where I thought that this was really nice for an Ecuadorian coffee. However, I mean, this year's just been filled with so many amazing Ecuadorian coffees that this one right here isn't quite the same standard for me specifically, but that's going to be nitpicky, and it's nitpicky in the sense that it wasn't quite as clean as the other one, so that's the only sticking point I have, is that maybe if this cup of coffee was a little bit more clean, maybe a slight bit lighter, then I would have enjoyed this coffee to the same extent as all of those other Ecuadorian coffees. But just blindly looking at this as coffee in general, I thought it was nice. I enjoyed this one. Not necessarily going to be my favorite of the year, but great improvement. Really strong first impression for a first review of one of Memli's coffee. So good job to Memli for this one. Type of person I would suggest this coffee to if you love the really sugary aspects, especially those sugary stone fruits. I think this one's a great fit for you. It has so much of it in such a strong abundance that it makes for a really intense, vibrant drink in general. I think for the most part though, I'll leave this review at that. If you by chance had an opportunity to try this coffee or anything from Memli, would love to know your thoughts and impressions of it or them as well. If you're enjoying the content, give this video a like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. This right here has been a review of the Pillcocaja, lot number 2, Golden Honey Processed Ecuador from Memli Coffee Lab. Thank you for watching.